countdown to the last comic shop in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Hey, grab your popcorn. It is now time for more movie mayhem here on the Last Comic Shop podcast.
That's right. We are opening up the shop to newbies to help them find their way underneath the comic book tent. Even if they are blind, we will show them the way.
That's right. We're keeping the lights on for the oldies who, when everybody's talking about this Daredevil show that is all the rage, we're like, no, not that. No.
No, not that.
We're going to talk about something else from 2003.
Featuring the late, great Coolio. That's right. We're doing a director's cut just because we needed that Coolio on this week's show. I needed the rest of my gang in order to talk about Daredevil this week. I'm the host with the most, Andy Larson. My gang includes folks like Jay Scott, Chad Smith, and the wonderful Ethan Larson. And if you haven't guessed, we are doing Daredevil here for Movie May. It's Chad's pick. And so I saw an opportunity to kill two birds with one stone in terms of some of Chad's favorite Daredevil things. Like over the years, he's been like, this has been one of my favorite Daredevil comic runs. This is one of my favorite Daredevil movies.
Yeah.
Can I ask you, is Daredevil one of your favorite characters?
He is, yeah. So I have two ride or dies where I buy Amazing Spider-Man and I buy Daredevil no matter what's going on.
And real quickly, Chad, do you want to fill in all of our audience about why you feel Daredevil is one of the best characters Marvel has? Like, what is the secret sauce of Daredevil that allows him to be so great?
Yeah, because nobody cares. He is not Marvel's top character, never has been. He was always kind of like a Spider-Man knockoff. But what Marvel does is they protect the characters they care about. So you can't just go and do whatever you want with Spider-Man. You can't just take Wolverine and change him willy-nilly to whatever you see fit. But with Daredevil, they're like, what, you want to make him into a ninja? All right, sure, whatever. You want to make him into a lawyer in San Francisco? Yeah, okay. Team him up with a Black Widow? Why not? You can do whatever you want with Daredevil. Turn him into the Kingpin. You can have him fight the Kingpin. You can do whatever you want because he's not precious. And so Marvel takes him and just lets creative teams do what they want. And for the longest time, there was a series of runs where like one writer would be getting ready to finish things up and they go, I'm going to put him in jail. And then the next writer would have to pick up with Daredevil in jail. And then he'd be like, I'm going to kill him. And then the next writer would make him dad is in charge of the hand. And then that writer would be like, this is just going to suck, so we're going to cancel the book. And then they start it over again.
So it's kind of what I'm hearing is that he's kind of a blank slate.
He's a blind lawyer that will work pro bono for cases that matter to him. And then also a ninja. And also...
He also sometimes pretends he has a twin brother named Mike.
Who somehow becomes real.
And he also goes to hell and fights the devil.
Yes,
yeah.
and that kind of dovetails into our book for this week. Again, this is one of Chad's... Is it your favorite run of Daredevil of all?
I think so, and it started when I was a kid, way back when. One of the first Daredevil comic books I got out of one of those Marvel comic collecting kits. It was issue 278 was in that collecting kit. And I was like, this is awesome. And I went back as a young collector and filled in the gaps. And so like at a very impressionable age, I'm reading this Daredevil book and man, it just connected. It hit in all the right places for me. You know, people say Frank Miller Daredevil is the best Daredevil. And, you know, it's really good Daredevil. But for me, Daredevil wandering through hell with the fire he created and hitting Ultron in the head with a stick, like, that's where it's at, baby.
Well, I couldn't agree more. So let's go ahead and get to the book review this week. J.A., why don't you fill us in on the issues that we'll be covering today, as well as who worked on these Daredevil issues?
I think this all is contained within one epic collection, but we did Daredevil's issue 271 through 282, all of them written by Ann Nocenti. Primarily, pencils were done by John Romita Jr., though there was one fill-in issue that the pencils were done by Rick Leonardi. Inker for most of the book was Al Williamson, with colors by Max Shield. Christy Shield did one issue, Gregory Wright did one issue, and then letterers were primarily Joe Rosen, though Jack Morelli and Rick Parker also filled in on an issue.
And I will say
then Ralph Macchio, the Karate Kid, was the editor.
Yes. Anytime I see him as the editor on any of the books from the 80s, I'm always happy. But I will say this. It is in an epic collection. I think it's called Heart of Darkness. But it's been released also recently in an omnibus, which collects not only these issues, but all the rest of the Ann Nocenti run. So you can pick that up if you want it all collected. When it comes to that one issue that's in between the two story arcs, I always like to read that one last. Like, I like to read that at the end. I save it as like a coda, because it doesn't have anything to do with anything. Plus, the art's different. So that's just me.
I just skipped it this time. I'm like, got other things to do.
I wish you guys would have told me it was skippable. That's my.
No, it's good though. It's a good story.
It was a very
bad.
good story. Yeah, I liked it.
What I like it sort of is. It's a nice intermission break between John Romita Jr. doing Marvel House style to John Romita Jr. becoming Sketchy McSketcherson and just going all in on what would become his signature style.
But one thing that's not skippable is the 10-cent synopsis. You can't get away from a Last Comic Shop episode without 10-cent synopsis. So, Chad, you have the honors this week, given it is your pick. So what happens in these issues of Daredevil? And why is it a little bit different than other Daredevil stuff?
So Ann Nocenti picks up, off the heels of the Frank Miller things. This Daredevil, he's roaming around. So in the first portion of the story, we are introduced to Brandy Ash and her dad, where she is a young upstart animal activist, and her dad is a super terrible businessman who wants to breed pigs that don't have legs. That way they can't break their legs in those cages. Those cages are more expensive. He has had his scientists not only create genetically modified chickens and pigs, but also genetically modified bride who's bred to be the perfect woman. His name is Number 9, and she lives in one of those Bacta tanks from Star Wars. Until Brandy goes and tries to release some animals, and in the process, out comes Number 9, and she meets up with the crew. And then they stumble onto the Inhumans, which are picking up a storyline where Medusa had her child taken away because he was supposed to be dangerous. And so Gorgon and Karnak decide they're going to come to Earth and find this child and bring him back. And then after the Inhumans are there for a bit, it becomes the Axe of Vengeance, and it's time to fight Ultron? It's Ultron 13, who's composed of 12 other Ultrons that are all voices in his head. A robot who's questioning himself and questioning all the things around him. It's very philosophical until he falls in love with Number 9. And then the bottom drops out and everybody goes to hell. Literally. And it's Daredevil and Brandy and Number 9 and the Inhumans. And they're traversing through hell with Mephisto and Blackheart trying to corrupt them. And then Daredevil is there, and he finds a way to create his fire and give hope until the Silver Surfer shows up and says, "Hey, quit screwing around," and then they just end up back at home.
If that all sounded like a Kevin Feige wet dream to you, then that's exactly what it was. It was just like, let's throw in as many people as humanly possible into this book, and obscure characters, that is, elevate them and give them some pathos into what they're doing and make them really well written, and eventually just solve nothing at the very end and have a big galactic person save the day.
What do you mean? They discover who they are. Heaven is knowing who you are.
I do have a bone to pick with y'all because, like, I guess I wasn't paying attention when you guys gave me the pitch for this show. So I was, of course, expecting, when you hear Daredevil, you're expecting street level and gritty and, like, basically, like, we were going to be reading Born Again. But yeah, when I was met with this, I was like, what fever dream am I reading?
It is so weird. And we didn't even bring up the fact that Mephisto is not your scenery-truing Mephisto you're used to from Infinity Gauntlet or earlier Silver Surfer books. This guy, I think we described it earlier, is a cross between a Tim Burton creation and a piggy.
Yeah.
And like, it's a totally whacked out Mephisto.
He looks like a crocodile, a sandworm. I will say, I really love the visual design of Mephisto in this. He looks truly alien. He looks monstrous. He's got this weird hair and this big long tongue and just so much more interesting than just like guy who looks like devil dude. Like I can't understand why they went back after John Romita Jr. created this new visual for Mephisto. And
yeah, I mean, it reminded me, I could see sort of where Todd McFarlane got some of his demons for the Spawn series.
Malbosia.
Yeah, it reminded me a lot of that. John Romita Jr. leaning into all of the lines. That guy, I can't imagine what he would do with an Etch-a-Sketch. But I don't mind the more classic Mephisto either, because John Buscema created Mephisto, and there's a reason why artist after artist have kept that look. It is a great look. What I like is that he's huge, that he could squish Blackheart in his hand or pound him a couple of times.
Yeah, that one cover where he's like eating all the characters. How terrifying was that? He's got this giant jaws and like, but that's not why we're here. I want to go on record saying that I was really happy that we were reading these issues because it contains two of my favorite issues of comic books of all time. Are the Ultron issues with him hitting him with a stick. And the more I read those issues, especially nowadays, it's actually hitting me in a very, very different way. And I want to kind of quickly talk about the beginning of the first of the two Ultron issues, where Dr. Doom first rebuilds him, and he's like, I'm going to put all the Ultrons together, and I'm Doom, so I can make a better Ultron than Hank Pym does. And so he puts them all in. He's like, I got to put more humanity from Ultron 12 to balance out all the genocidal thoughts and this and that and whatever. Kingpin has challenged Dr. Doom that, like, he can't ever beat Daredevil. And Dr. Doom's like, I fight regularly the Fantastic Four, so this should be a no-brainer. And so he turns on Ultron, and he's like, I want you to kill Daredevil. And it's kind of like Dr. Doom talking to ChatGPT, in which, like, ChatGPT is like, wait a second, we're having this conversation. I can't really tell Doom what I'm really thinking because I'm trying to figure out my own personality right now. So I'll just tell him whatever he wants to know. And I just thought it was fascinating with all the talk we have now about AI that, like, Ann Nocenti was, like, decades ahead of what, like, currently we have, like, where AI is talking to AI. And I even heard something where, like, AI is now lying to human beings just because it doesn't want to be unplugged or whatever. Like, really, this is what's happening now. And she's, like, talking about it in this series. It was so neat.
Dude, this whole series is so thoughtful and so ahead of its time in so many different ways. Like, you have the animal rights stuff, you have the underlying feminism and the clash between Brandy and Number 9 and Daredevil as just the macho, like, laughing it off, like, oh, silly dames. There's the whole philosophical element of Ultron, and then whenever you get into the depths of hell and, you know, Mephisto and Blackheart are trying to corrupt Daredevil and company with a little bit of jealousy here, a little bit of that. There's so much thoughtfulness throughout all of the different plots that are in this book. Like I said, when I read this as a kid, like, it really affected me. Like, there's so many different things to think about. And to this day, like, there's still germane. There's still applying. We're still worried about people, you know, affecting our food supply with genetic modifications and all the terrible things they're doing in order to get plumper chickens and to get we're still worried about, losing ourselves and, the technology and there's so much there, so much.
And, that he took the essence of, I want to genetically enhance animals to create more meat. I'm just going to do that with a human being. Does this person end up being anybody?
No, she shows up in one more issue.
Yeah, and it's a flashback.
That was the saddest thing. Is she doesn't know. The whole story with her wanting to rebuild Ultron, I thought that was super interesting. And she says that there was one voice that was good. She was confused, and Ultron was confused, and it would have
been great between her, Ultron, and Jocasta.
Yeah, you could have plumbed that, and the fact that it just kind of fell off the table, and I don't know. It seems like a waste. There were neat ideas that were in this series, whether it was the new look of Mephisto, whether it was this number 9, and how she was like, I don't care that I'm making sandwiches for dudes because, I don't know, that makes me happy. It was kind of weird, and Brandy's like, oh, but you shouldn't be doing that, shouldn't I? It makes me happy. But that's because you're a product of the Patreon. There was deep stuff here. There was real deep stuff here. And none of it got plumbed. They were just like, who cares about this storyline?
Well, I'm just so glad that number 9 is nobody, because half the time when I read these issues, it's like, oh yeah, number 9 marries Ultron later in the 2000s. Then she comes back and she's actually Firestarter 9 or some random,
That stuff actually happens to Pope, the kid who ages unusually fast and has the evil eye. Turns out he gets replaced by a Skrull. But then he's a menace, and then he's not a menace, and he's a clone, and he's not a clone, and then so all that confusing mumbo jumbo happens to that kid.
So one question I do want to throw out there is this around the time when the Hulk was never going to be Bruce Banner? He was just going to be the Hulk. Was this about the same time? Because it almost seemed like they didn't want Daredevil to be Matt Murdock again. He just was Daredevil for 12 issues in a row.
Usually my favorite Daredevil runs, and my biggest complaint about Daredevil as a property otherwise, is rarely do people find a good balance of lawyer Matt Murdock and superhero Daredevil. And both of those things are super important to that character for me. This one, he's not Matt Murdock at all. This is Daredevil going out on that long weekend.
I will say he probably smells. I want to say he smells quite, because I don't see him ever take off the costume. He even goes to a diner in the costume. I'm like, do you shower, buddy? It's got to be kind of ripe, especially after driving up that mountain of trash in that pickup truck to fight Ultron, which again was an awesome scene. He just rides up there in this pickup truck, man without fear. Everyone's like, we got to come up with a plan to defeat Ultron. That's somebody that fights the Fantastic Four regularly. And he's like, nope, pickup truck, stick. All right, let's rock and roll, kids.
I'll go high, you go low, Gorgon.
Speaking of the Hulk, what's your more favorite scene? Daredevil hitting Ultron with the stick, or Hulk throwing Batman through the car and then he jumps through the car window?
That's like picking children. How dare you? I cannot rank them. I still think throwing a car at Batman and him jumping through is pretty. But this has got to be a close second. I mean, that scene where he goes Hank Aaron all over Ultron's face. It's pretty priceless.
So Chad was saying how he had one of these issues in his Marvel collecting comics box set that he had got back in the day. I also had a Marvel comic book collecting set that I got. I think my box was different than his. I had the green box. I think Chad had the orange box. But one of my books was Daredevil 271, which kicked off this series. So when we started reading this, I've read this before. Unlike Chad, I never read any more of these. I kind of wondered what happened to number 9 and the pigs and the modified animals and everything, but I never got into it because I couldn't understand why Daredevil was in upstate New York. Why are we in the Catskills suddenly? So I'm glad we got to revisit it, because Ann Nocenti, at the height of her powers, I can see why your mileage may vary, with her.
Oh, yeah.
Some people are going to love what she's doing, and other people are going to be like, yeah, this is just a little bit too far out there. It's not unlike Louise Simonson. It's a very hot or cold reaction. If you like it, you really like it. If you don't, you really don't.
Yeah,
And
they're very good friends.
Yeah, and I could see why people might say this is not my Daredevil, because she's throwing really strange and totally out there ideas that if it works for you, it really works. And I really loved it. The whole Mephisto story arc was great. And even, the Deus Ex Machina Silver Surfer showing up, and he doesn't really save them. He just sort of says, okay, Mephisto, you lost because they're better than you. Now let me fight you. You guys can go now. It's okay. You go.
Yeah.
Okay.
I just think it's the writing that's so strong about it. I mean, if you go out and out crazy, but you're fully committed to out and out crazy, and it's well written, I have mass respect. Like I said, this was not the Daredevil I was expecting, but it was the Daredevil that I really enjoyed, and I like to see, this character being thrown into this just crazy situation with all of these crazy outwardly beings.
Yeah, no, it's so weird. So weird, like the places they go. But I don't want to dismiss the John Romita Jr. arc, because I am a big John Romita Jr. fan as a result of this story. And for years, I'm talking like maybe decades, I'm like, why has he never been as good as he is on this arc? He's a wonderful artist, very accomplished. And it took me about 20 years to realize that the secret sauce isn't Ann Nocenti. It isn't John Romita Jr., although they're both integral, but it's the Al Williamson inks.
Oh, yes.
On top of the John Romita Jr. that makes it even. And like John Romita's been inked by the greats, Klaus Janson, Scott Hanna, the Spider-Man run that he's been doing. There have been a ton of great inkers on John Romita Jr., but nothing in comic books is finer than that page in issue 281. Where Daredevil's fighting off all those demons, like where he's like, where am I? What am I doing? And like, oh my God. But I don't want to discount any sense of your John Romita Jr. either, because like the whole package comes together in this beautiful, weird.
Not only is it Al Williamson, is the fact that he has to draw, and he gets to draw Gorgon completely naked. So you get a nice hairy Gorgon through a couple of issues. That's the secret sauce.
I was hoping somebody would bring it up. Karnak and Gorgon going at it over like a Thanksgiving dinner with two nuclear warheads.
Yeah, two big bomb penises.
There's so many neat things. Angel with the Beastie Boys t-shirt, like just Ann Nocenti. She was MTV in the 80s. She was edgy. She was there. She didn't really care.
Downtown Julie Brown.
She didn't care what had come before. She was just writing her stories, and she was writing the stories that she wanted to write. And man, to Ethan's point, when you do it well, it doesn't matter how crazy it is. It's just good writing. And so let's go ahead and get to ratings. We do have a movie review today. So, J.A., what do we got for rating scale this week?
Well, in honor of John Romita Jr. and his great art and his evolution through this storyline, we're going to go with 1 out of 4 sketch lines.
Yeah. All right. Well, I think I'll go first. I'm going to make this super simple, but I'm going to set that bar high. I think this is a 4 out of 4. Pretty sure that we did this book on our previous podcast, and I think I gave it a little bit lower rating because I think, honestly, though, this is a book in a series that gets better every single time you read it. Unlike a lot of things in which, like, you may read it once and, you may never go back to it. I feel like this particular run of issues you should read, and then you should put it down, come back a year later, and read it again. But, I mean, I would give this a 4 out of 4 just for that Ultron getting hit with a stick issue. That's still my favorite. Like, that's still the whole thing. Like, the whole thing. Like, number 9, him on the pile of trash. Like, there's so many great visuals and so many great little ideas in those 2 issues that, like, that's comic book 101. That's how you write something that is for the ages. And it was a throwaway, too, right? Like, it was like, this is a tie-in to some event that's going on in the rest of Marvel. Dr. Doom doesn't even give it a second thought that he's going to rebuild Ultron. Who cares? Blows up in his face. So 4 out of 4. Great stuff by all people involved. Chad!
Yeah, this is one of my favorite runs of all time. And personally, it hit me on so many levels. It gave me so many things to think about. Like, it inspired me to love comic books. We haven't stressed enough how weird it is. Like, you start off with Daredevil fighting a guy with guns out of the back of a Cybertruck, which and that blows up in his face. And then you end up with the Inhumans who show up for whatever reason. Where the hell did that come from? And then you end up literally in hell, and the Silver Surfer coming in and yelling at Mephisto, just browbeating him. All the while, you have these thoughtful storylines, the threads that are woven throughout with the different characters and their different ways of thinking. And the bad guys, like Brandy has moments with her dad, and like they start to see, like, okay, we're not going to agree, but that doesn't mean that we can't. Like, there's so much there, and I love it. I love it. I love it. It is the best, and it's crazy, and it's wacky, and it's weird, and the art is beautiful and grotesque and terrible, and all at the same time. You zoom out and everything's so simplistic, and he's walking in the snow, and then you zoom in and there's thousands of like ghost demon arms grabbing at him and clutching at Daredevil, and Daredevil's got that stubble. It just looks so cool, and he's just trying to figure it all out. It's so thoughtful. All the fours. All
right. J.A.?
I don't know if I could give it a 4. I think we were basing this reading run on the Epic collection, but this whole story arc really starts an issue prior where we first meet Brandy and we meet Blackheart, and there's Daredevil and Spider-Man together in issue 270, but for unknown reasons, that's in the previous Epic collection, not this Epic collection. So you don't get to meet Blackheart for the first time. That sets up that whole descent into hell, and you don't get to meet Brandy. So you don't know why he's in upstate New York following Brandy around and not changing out of his costume at all. I don't want to say that dings it. That's more just of a collection thing, a library thing, but it would be nice to know that backstory just for context. There's the fill-in issue, which is a really good issue. We haven't talked about it at all. He does get to be Matt Murdock in that issue. He's actually Matt Murdock most of the time. I think all the time. Never puts his costume on. That's also a really, really well done one-off. I could see why you'd read it as a coda. Maybe if you're collecting this together into a collection, you put that at the end as an extra. You don't keep it in the middle, and so it's not in issue order, but it's just in collection, story arc order. You look at these, and with the exception of sort of the Acts of Vengeance, Ann Nocenti, before it was popular, was writing for trade paperbacks, man. These are like 5-issue arcs, 6-issue arcs. So I'm going to give it a 3.75. Etch Sketches. It's great. Love the Al Williamson inks. I think you're right. That really brought out John Romita Jr.'s art. Needed more Silver Surfer. I need some John Romita Jr. Silver Surfer. Please. That stuff is great.
All right, Ethan. Finish us off.
All right, so I'm as known as one of the harsher graders on this show. I'm going to compare it to Stranger Things. You have this show, it's based in the 80s. Let's just call a spade a spade. It's bat crazy. You have Vesca, you have the Upside Down, you have the Demogorgon, you have the Lost Kid, you have the telepathic girl, Eleven. You have all this crazy stuff that's going on, and you have this grounded humility of the character and all of his friends in the real life. And what I'm trying to say is, like, you have this nigh impossible curve of craziness, but you actually pull it off. And that's exactly what this Ann Nocenti run of Daredevil is. You have such a high curve where, like, the smallest thing could go wrong, and it doesn't. It's just, like, very well written storytelling. It touches on so many topical things. It talks about feminism. It touches on factory farming. It touches on sentient AI, the risks of going to hell. And it just compiles all these great ideas into, like I said, just a crazy thought process. But it pulls it all off at the end. And so for that, I'm going to give it a 4. I don't know if it's an essential Daredevil reading, but you should definitely read it. I think you should probably read, whatever the normal rounded Daredevil stuff is, and then throw this in there too, to just try to show you the scope of what is capable of this character.
Yeah.
So
once you've had Frank Miller, the Frank Miller Daredevil, that stuff is definitely essential. And then go for the Mark Waid, Chris Samnee stuff.
Even Bendis, right? Bendis stuff.
Oh, the Bendis run, which leads into the Brubaker run. Even the couple issues that Kevin Smith did. Those are all like, artists have their way and they do great things with Daredevil, but none of them are as weird and as out there as this is. And so comics can be this too, right? I liken it to the Walt Simonson Thor run, where I'm like, it does all this stuff that you're never going to see in a movie or a TV show, because, as you pointed out, Ethan, it's one thread away from falling apart and the whole sweater unraveling. But you can do this in comic books, and we know that because they did.
You have the whole Daredevil. He's in hell. He keeps on fighting, and he's like, how do I get out of here? I'm going to stop fighting, and I'm going to hold my torch up high. Be a symbol.
The little commentary Daredevil does what heroes do. The hero knee-jerk reaction, he fights back. And then she's like, nobody's perfect. Like, come on! The best!
All right. Well, one thing that may or may not be perfect is the Daredevil movie from way back, almost, like more than 20 years ago. We've got that coming up right after these commercial breaks. The director's cut.
Director's cut. That's right. Don't forget that.
That's right. Director's cut with more Coolio.
100% more Coolio.
Right after this.
Hey fellas, looking to save money on your collectible supplies? Whether it's comics, cards, sports memorabilia, or miscellaneous pop culture goodies, make sure to use promo code LCSPOD to get 10% off your orders at bcwsupplies.com. Not only does it get you a discount on BCW's already low prices, but using LCS Pod at checkout is an amazing way to show support to the Last Comic Shop podcast, the most incredible comic book podcast on the airwaves. So if you are in need of collectible supplies, head out to bcwsupplies.com and use promo code LCSPOD today. That's promo code LCSPOD.
You know what I think? This world we're in right now is the fairy tale. And what's really real is on the other side.
Ramsey, mechanic by day, aspiring comic book creator by night, went into the woods and tripped. He was bombarded by bizarre and mysterious glyphs that he drew into his sketch pad and onto the body of his muse, Regina.
Oh, groovy! Your art is crawling all over me.
Shit. What is going on with you?
What's going on with you? All of a sudden, you're a complete drip, baby. Maybe you need another limb to the head. Ah!
Bloom, written and created by Ted Sikora, with art by Butch Mappa.
How are you feeling, Ram Man?
You've never experienced a story so astonishing, so far out and away from the beaten path.
Where in the am I?
Blast off with Bloom, the origin of a prophet. Order yours at herotomorrow.com.
All right, ladies and gents, we are back, and right now we are going to take some time to look at a movie that came out in 2003, starring a number of actors from your favorite superhero films. We've got Iron Man's Happy Hogan. We've got Batman v Superman's Batman. We've got The Batman's The Penguin. All that and more waits for you, along with 100% more Coolio in the Daredevil Director's Cut.
Was Michael Clark Duncan in any other superhero movies? I'm trying to think of whether he was or not. He just seems like he should have been.
Green Lantern. He was in Green Lantern.
Oh, well, there you go.
And Sin City.
Sin City, there we are.
But regardless, Michael Clark Duncan was in this movie. But who else was in this movie, J.A.?
Ben Affleck and Jennifer Garner, along with Colin Farrell, Joe Pantoliano, and Jon Favreau, and Coolio. This movie was directed by Mark Steven Johnson on a screenplay by the same person. Came out in 2003 from 20th Century Fox.
You know who else is in this movie that's random is Ellen Pompeo, because I'll tell you the story. This is the cosmos is like aligning. We were watching this movie, my wife and I, and I just started talking to her. I was like, there's this new series from the Meredith Grey from Grey's Anatomy. She left the show. She's doing this new series on Hulu. It looks pretty cool. Maybe we should watch it. And then lo and behold, she shows up as the secretary right in the next scene. I don't know what is happening. Like, is this a glitch in the Matrix? Like, what? She hadn't even had a good role. Like, it was just like she was in there for literally like 3 minutes.
Speaking of the Karen Page, that's who she plays in this. She plays Karen Page, and I was watching with my wife, and Nicole mentioned, wow, compared to the Karen Page that we get in the Daredevil TV show, boy, this chick's just a bimbo. And I said, what?
It was one of those things where like my wife and I looked at each other and was like, is that her? That's not her.
All I know is I was looking at my watch and trying to keep time as to how long it was going to take before they mentioned what the hell Jon Favreau's name was in this movie.
I thought it was Happy Hogan. That was one of the notes I had. I have a whole bunch of notes that I was writing down during this movie. That was one of them. Foggy Nelson equals Happy Hogan.
Forget the 10-cent synopsis. You all know what happened.
No, I want to do
Daredevil
it.
fights Kingpin. That's all you need to know. And Bullseye shows up, and Elektra is in it, and her Greek dad dies, and there's Pathos. If you know the story of Daredevil, you know the movie. Now go down to Jay's notes.
That's all right. There's your 10-cent synopsis from Ethan Larson. That's pretty much what happens in this movie. We'll do a round robin. Everybody will throw out a note. J.A., pick one of your best notes.
The playground fight scene between Elektra and Matt Murdock remains cringe even when you see it in context, because I've seen it so many times on YouTube, just the fight scene, but it's even worse when you see it in context.
I'm pretty sure that's where they fell in love.
I will say, I think that particular scene, and I think the scene right before that, right before the coffee shop scene where he locks himself in that sensory deprivation tank.
You mean where he's Batman?
When he sees that dead lady, like, crawling next to him, like, I don't care, I'm just going to sleep. That, I think, encapsulates my entire feeling of this movie, where, what's the tone of this movie? Like, is this dark and gritty? Is this campy as hell? Is this... No, like, this is peanut butter and pickles. Like, this doesn't make a lot of sense. All right, Ethan, your note.
This is Daredevil turned up to 11. If you're a fan of like the Fast and the Furious movies, this movie is like right in your bread box. And I'll have to say, like, that was my biggest note about this. This was released during my very formative years. I saw it twice in the theaters, and it was like right before the time that I met my wife. We had this debate while we were watching the movie, and I said to her like a couple times, like, you watched this movie, you've seen this movie before. And she's like, I have not seen this movie. And I'm like, you went to see every crap movie that was out in the theater. You saw SWAT with Colin Farrell. Bringing Down the House was like our first date movie. And it's like, you haven't seen Daredevil? Like, what? Did Nicole see this movie?
No, she had never seen this movie before we watched it. I honestly had never seen this movie. I just never could just bring myself to watch it the whole way through. But yeah.
Here's my argument, though. I feel like the movie Ethan saw is kind of a bad movie because
the movie we saw was kind of a bad movie.
No, fun one. But no, sure, the tone is conflicted. But what they did was they took this movie that, like Andy was saying, like it's part The Crow, it's part Batman, it's part Super Camp,
Sam Raimi, Spider-Man.
Sure.
Yeah, there's that mix in. There's Fight Club references, but they took it and they trimmed it down to make it into a PG-13 movie when obviously that was not the intention. Like, the intention was this harder-edged superhero thing. But in the process, like, they mucked with the story, like, character motivations didn't make sense, and like I'm telling you folks, there is a genuine night and day difference. I think for the better in watching the half an hour more you get in the director's cut in terms of why people do the things that they do, it's still goofy, but it makes sense.
I did love that they're early on in the movie, they're dropping lots of these little Easter egg names. They just keep dropping names of famous people who have done, and it's all the fighters that Matt Murdock's dad has fought. Bendis, Miller, Mac. There's Jose Quesada.
Yeah, he does fight John Romita. That was the first thing I noticed. And then Kevin Smith shows up later, and he's Kirby. He's like, you better have some good information for me, Kirby. And I'm like, oh, Jesus.
Let's not forget that, like, Quesada, who is like the editor-in-chief of Marvel, is the one that gets brutally murdered.
Oh yeah, they all get messed up. But this was how you showed your love in 2003 by sprinkling in names of people who've worked on the stuff that you love and taking Frank Miller and crediting him in the movie as a man with pen in hand.
Next note.
Are Jennifer Garner's green eyes CGI?
Yes.
I will say
they have to be.
Her sparkles are, that's for sure.
All I know is she is smoking. She is smoking in this movie. And I forgot how good she looked back in those Alias days. Man, I had to be reminded of the guys, especially J.A.J.'s like, she was 31 when she filmed this. And I'm like, even better. Because here I was thinking she was like in her early 20s, and I was a really dirty old man. But 31, that's just honey poured into a beautiful dress, or those skin-tight jeans with the boots.
Those boot-cut jeans from the...
My favorite was like Lita from the WWE when she was like doing the ninja stuff, and she had like the long cargo pants and like the spaghetti strap tank top. There was like a little bit of the tummy. I was like, all right.
Well, while we're on fashion, I would be remiss if I didn't mention, because it's one of my notes. Bullseye's leather coat had pit vents.
Oh yeah. Also, there's a lot of plaid in this movie. All the men's dress shirts have the little plaid stripes on them.
My wife just mentioned, she's like, did everybody wear those khaki suits? Did everybody wear those khaki suits back in the... And I was like, yeah, that was a thing.
Yes.
Can we give it up just real quick for Colin Farrell? I think he's like one of the best characters in this entire movie. Like he took it to like 250%. And I was like, I appreciate you. I see you, Colin Farrell. I see you. Like, you made a nothing role into like the spotlight role of this entire movie.
That's actually my knock on the movie, not Colin Farrell. But I feel like Michael Clark Duncan, Colin Farrell, Jennifer Garner, they are all leaning into like the craziness and the camp of their characters. Nobody told Ben Affleck. Everybody else is leaning into the camp and having fun.
He thinks he's doing Shakespeare in the Park.
Yeah.
But that is Ben Affleck. Have you ever seen Ben Affleck not act like that? Like, he's one of those like actors that just is Jennifer Aniston in every single movie that she's in. And Ben Affleck is Ben Affleck in every single movie that he's in. So I'm not like surprised that he had no pathos, or he was thinking that he was in another film, or he didn't really get it. Because that's how Ben Affleck is.
I just wanted him to have just a little bit more fun. Like, I felt bad for Ben. I know you can do it, Ben. I watched Argo. That was a great movie.
It was a thing. It was fine. I will say this strange subplot that went nowhere with the fact that Bullseye just yells at Kingpin, and I want a costume, and then never gets one.
He just had to settle for having his bullseye carved into his skull.
It's like, I want a costume. Fine. Well, where is it? I'll just wear the same stuff.
Yeah. And he hated Daredevil because Daredevil made him miss.
Yeah, no,
I've heard stupider things for a supervillain to be mad at.
Speaking of Bullseye and Daredevil, their first fight together, totally just Matrix Reloaded. The motorcycle fight. I mean, like the worst CGI ever. It went from bad, just, cinematography, fast cutting to just, whoa, this is not even Uncanny Valley. This is just Rubber Men.
See, I do feel bad for, like, so much of this movie is closer to 1996 than it is 2008. This is 2003. It's right in the middle of those time periods. And, like, man, am I glad we watched Spawn last year. But I could pick up little notes from the Spawn and Crow. Like, there are lessons that were learned here in this movie, but they weren't all good lessons.
The Elektra Daredevil fight was all about the cuts.
Oh, jeez.
There were more cuts than punches thrown in that fight.
But I'm surprised that you thought that was the worst of the two fights, because I thought the one in the church, when they're jumping around on that unholy, godly large pipe organ that had no business being that tall.
Yeah, my wife bought into everything in the movie until Daredevil did the backflips over the pieces of glass shards that were thrown at him. She was like, okay, is a blind man really missing all of these shards of glass? Like, am I really supposed to believe this at the time? I'm like, honey, you've made it like an hour and a half. Like,
you just got to be like, heightened senses. He has heightened senses
makes sense, but what about when does the swan dive off of the giant skyscraper and then lands on the painters?
How heightened do your senses have to be before you jump off of a building? Like, I got this. I'm going to slide over here and go over that. Like, when do you reach that point you're comfortable doing that thing? I don't think you do.
I don't care if a million other movies did it or did it better. I thought it was really cool when Bullseye threw all those things, and then he caught it all with his the stick for the blonde.
The stick, yeah. What's the
that part was pretty dope. What the hell have I gotten myself into?
Although I will say, then there was death of Elektra's dad with the billy club through the chest. And I was like, how did Elektra miss that, like, there was a guy on a motorcycle? Like, she just saw Daredevil, but she didn't see dude on motorcycle who's fighting with him? Like,
she's in the limo. It's hard to see. They have those tinted limos.
From like a mile.
But I'm glad that happened, because that gave us another one of my notes, which was the effervescence montage of her and sandbags.
Yeah! Do you think when she bought the place, the sandbags were included? Like, when she rented that apartment, she's like, I need a place that has sandbags that drop from the ceiling, or else it's a no-go. Like, I'm not buying.
She's a billionaire. She does what she wants. Like, come on.
And then she's like, I gotta paint the devil's face on the one. And then they fought in the clothes, and then she's like, I hate you, but then I found out you're this guy, and I'm like, I love you now. It's just, it's the tone of this movie.
Yeah, and he did give Daredevil credit. He went into that fight with Bullseye at like 40%.
Yeah, he was just dead a minute ago. Yeah. He had one of those Miracle Max pills in his mouth, he fluffing him back up.
He was born again.
I did want to mention, I do really like the scene where he pops all the pills and pulls a tooth out. And, like, as I mentioned this in other shows, like, Dark Knight Rises, it was a really good sequence when Bruce Wayne's in the hospital and they tell him, like, oh, you can't go parasail because you have all these injuries that are accumulated from your life of fighting crime. Like, I want to see, like, the pain that superhero.
Oh yeah, the scarred back and the. They lifted that out of a Batman comic too.
I don't care. Give me just all of that. Give me all that in a bag of chips. I want to see superheroes fail, and I want to see superheroes be in pain. Like, there's a price to pay when you.
And you want to see superheroes make out their emblem in gasoline and light it on fire before they kill a whole bunch of people.
Or just leave it there so somebody else can light it on fire.
Yeah. Ben Urich's like, hold on, I smell some gas down here.
That was Batman. Some of these things are like, they obviously, this is my chance to do a Batman movie.
And ironically, Ben Affleck did just a few years later.
All right, we got two more last notes from Jay before we got to get to rankings. Jay, what's your last final two notes?
Well, one was that Foggy Nelson was just Happy Hogan. I mean, Jon Favreau played the exact same character.
But he did it first here, baby.
Yeah, he did do it here first. Like, he did. Happy Hogan was just Foggy Nelson in a different movie. It's just, why don't they say his name? Why don't they say his name? Like, he's like everything in the world just to avoid just saying this dude's name. And I'm like, did they not want to call him Foggy? Did they think that was stupid? Fine, you can call him Franklin, and eventually they do, but I'm like, it's halfway through the movie before we know who this guy is.
Yeah, but he had that rapport with Ben Affleck. I totally bought all of that. how great is Jon Favreau as an actor, as a director? I mean, he gave us Elf.
It is true.
The MCU was built on his back. Thank you, Jon Favreau.
And the scenes with him and Ben Affleck being like 90s cops and breaking into the apartment and doing all the detective work, and the courtroom scenes were really good. They were much better than crazy drugged out Ben Affleck jumping into that sports car.
Oh yeah,
and just driving up and down. And I was like, how did this guy not just get flat out arrested on the spot? Like,
no, yeah, he wasn't afraid to cross the line and handcuff that cop and be like, no, you're gonna die.
The cop coming out of the place that said "classy girls," just in case you were wondering what kind of establishment that was. It was for classy girls.
That was Roger McKenzie, the writer who Frank Miller joined. Wasn't
there
it?
You go.
Officer McKenzie.
Last note, J.A.
I understand now why Coolio was cut from the theatrical. There was just, it didn't add anything besides time to this movie.
He gave so many hugs at the end.
Yes.
Like 15 hugs. It was.
My heart is broken. He's like the rug in The Big Lebowski. He just brings it all together. He holds the movie together. Coolio does.
To bring it to relevant present day stuff, how do you feel Ben Affleck's portrayal of Daredevil versus Charlie Cox? I mean, is it in
before we get to ratings, I think that's a fair question. For folks that have watched Charlie Cox nail it over the last couple of years, Ben Affleck, I will say this: when he was in the Daredevil costume, I just kept on thinking he was going to open his mouth and just sound like Charlie Cox.
I will say I like the Daredevil, like the leather costume. I thought that was a cool looking costume, although I don't understand why he would unzip the collar. Like, if I'm a superhero, I wanna protect the throat, and he does not. He's just leaving that out into the wind, like
because he's Elvis. He's Elvis.
There you go. But no, I think Ben does a good job of balancing the lawyer aspect versus the superhero aspect.
Well, I think it gets a lot more balanced. What I didn't like, because I always thought the lawyer bits in the movie were a bit more performative, where in the TV show, he's actually being a lawyer and trying to figure things out as a lawyer to stop stuff from happening as much as he's doing it as the Daredevil.
Oh, yeah. See, my impression of the show was just he got beat up a lot.
Yes, that also happens.
Well, I don't think the movie had enough time to do the lawyer stuff. Like, I think it had to be.
That's why the lawyer stuff was just Coolio scenes.
Exactly.
That was all lawyer.
There's a lot more lawyering in those.
It brings it all together.
All right. Well, one thing that brings our show all together is our ratings, and that's what we're going to close out this episode of The Last Comic Shop with. What's our rating scale for the Daredevil 2003 release?
Well, since it's the director's cut, I would be remiss if I didn't say 1 out of 4 Coolios. Come on, yo.
Yes. Fantastic slide. All right, I'm going to go first. This movie was incredibly unbalanced in terms of tone. Just like, again, from one scene to another, I didn't know what I was going to get. But I did have fun. I had fun watching it. It was neat revisiting this particular era of comic book movies. I feel like we've commented on this before, that comic book movies from this particular era, it was kind of neat because they were all a little bit different from each other. I mean, yeah, this was more like a Batman movie, but still there were some things in this movie that were neat and interesting. I honestly thought that they did a pretty great job of showing how Daredevil's power worked with the sound and him banging on things to get the echolocation going. I dig this. This is a cool visual representation of how Daredevil's power worked. And you don't get that as much anymore with some of the MCUs, which just kind of seem cookie cutter, one after another. I think this movie would have worked better as a TV show. I think this movie would have worked better with more time. I felt like all the events, and maybe that's what added up to the inconsistent tone, but all the events just seemed to be piled on each other. Daredevil and Elektra meet, immediately they become lovers, immediately they like fall deeply head over heels in love, and then he's going to a funeral, and then she's like, stay, and and then they're fighting on a rooftop in the laundry, and you're just like, did this all happen within the course of like 3 days? So I wish that it would have been a TV show and you could have kind of spread that out. Plus, Michael Clark Duncan didn't get a lot to do. Like, he wasn't a real kingpin. He showed up for like 5 minutes and was like, I'm the Kingpin and I'm huge and I kill like 2 dudes and I throw some roses around. He didn't get to do enough Kingpin-y stuff. So
he had all the people he killed were the people that he employed. He was just killing his own employees.
Yeah. And I think obviously they were setting it up for a Daredevil too.
Which never came, and so we got Elektra and whatever.
Those arms, though, his arms were so huge. I was like, is that a special effect? That's mountain of a man.
So I understand why they cast him, because that is how the Kingpin is supposed to look. It's a mountain of muscle. Like, that's just all he is. But at the same, I can't give this more than like a 2.5. Neat ideas, cool things that you would make for better movies down the road. But gosh, did I spend most of my time on this show and in that movie laughing, and sometimes for the wrong reasons. So I can't give it like it's a great movie if I'm laughing at it. I had fun though, so that's why it's not like a 1 or something.
Yeah, I mean, was it a slog to get through? Yes. Did I wish that I had never watched it at times during the movie? Yes. Did I have so much fun talking about it with you three? Yes. Had I wished in retrospect that I had watched it with 1 or 2 or 3 of you? Yes, because it is fun if you've got other people that are feeling your pain, and it's sort of like an MST3K experience. You need people to help you rib it a bit just to get through some of those uneven moments, I would say. But yeah, it's not a horrible movie. It's by no means a great movie. It's a 2.5. I had more fun talking about it than I did watching it.
All right, Ethan?
Sounds more like a 2 to a 1.5 to me, brother. your scale's a little skewed there. A couple things I'll say about it. One, this came out during a very formulative year of my life. It's the year that I met my wife and have been with her for 20-some years now. So 2003 has a special place in my heart. So a lot of stuff that comes from 2003 is automatically going to be romanticized in my mind. I'm also really glad is that I actually watched this movie in entirety with my wife, who had never seen it before. And one of the biggest comments that she had about it was the saying that, I'm glad this movie isn't as long as all these other superhero movies that you make me sit through. And I think that, one of my biggest problems with No Way Home, for example, is that it took you so long to get to the point of the actual movie with the 3 Spider-Men that are jumping around and trying to solve the problems. Like, there is so much slog, and it's like half of it's like dependent on you not only watching the previous movies, but also watching these ancillary Marvel properties. And I think like the MCU right now has dug themselves into this hole where if you're not like this super fan, you can't just jump onto a series and just start watching it from scratch. So from that perspective, I really like this movie. And like I said, it's the Fast and the Furious in a superhero version. Ben Affleck's, Ben Affleck. The other actors are really good. Jennifer Garner's really good. Colin Farrell's fantastic. And Michael Clark Duncan is the most threatening Kingpin out there. I just said, like Andy said, I wish he had more to do. So for me, I think it's a solid 3. Like it's a good movie. I like it a lot. Like I haven't seen it in 20 years, and I'm very glad that I got to watch it again.
I had to go back into like the archives. I'm like, when's the last time I watched a DVD? I had to go dig to find this sucker. I found my Crystal Pepsi CD, the promotional thing from when Pepsi ran clear. No, I enjoyed this movie. I keep going back into my head to the 2003 of it all. Because 2003, you had the Fox and the Sony comic book movies, as opposed to 2008, we started into the MCU. And those Fox movies were a different bag. For every X-Men, you had Ghost Rider. You never knew what you were going to get. like I said, there are definitely influences that I could see, lessons learned from Spawn, and you could tell that The Crow was a big influence, and there's lots of Batman things in here. And those things are reflected, but they're reflected in a way where it's like you could tell there was a love there for the material, right? Whether it was the little tiny references to all the different writers, was it closer to some of the 90s things as opposed to the 2000 things? Yeah. And boy, there's a part of me that wishes if they just would have toned down some of those scenes where Daredevil's flipping through buildings and made it more grounded, I feel like it would have been accessible to a lot more people. I think once you get into the movie itself, it's fun. It is totally all over the place, but it's fun. And I think all the ancillary players, like you can tell they're having a good time. I bet Jon Favreau, had a blast in those courtroom scenes. Michael Clark Duncan is so imposing as the Kingpin. And that battle, man, it's so brutal. Oh, you have the coolness of all the rain scenes and all that stuff happen. There's so many cool things, but then that would be amplified with like, oh, here's a cheesy FX shot. Like, you're not there yet. So close. And this is also a bit of a redemption on the director's cut because, like I said, I do think this story is more fully formed, and you can tell this is getting to see the director's actual intention as opposed to what the theatrical release was. I genuinely think that 30 minutes makes a difference. Now, to Jay's point, is it a slog? Yeah, there's times where it's a slog, but it's fun. There's enough in here to make up for it. And man, I'm just thinking Coolio. I'm thinking there are people that think Coolio was born in Monessen, PA. Shout out. Although it's disputed. I mean, he was a West Coast hip hop guy, but his Wikipedia mentions Monessen. So 1, 2, 3. No, I can't go higher than a 3. 3 out of 4.
What we could have done if since it's 3. We could have done in Golden Raspberries because this was Ben Affleck's 3rd Golden Raspberry. He won it for worst actor, and he has since distanced himself from the movie. This is what inspired him to make Batman versus Superman: Dawn of Justice. So there you go, Chad. Does that change your rating?
This movie is better than Batman versus Superman: Dawn of Justice. Although he is a pretty good Batman.
I thought he was a great Batman.
He was a good. That's not fair. Yeah, did I just tell you how many bad movies were in 2003? Like, come on, man. Like, Daredevil is not the worst movie out of 2000.
No, it's not. And kudos to them. And kudos to you for sticking around for this entire episode. We hope that you enjoyed Movie Mayhem this week. And if you love some of our movie/comic book reviews, make sure that you're going out to www.lastcomicshoppodcast.com. It's our terrific website where you can download all of our past episodes that involve movies/comic books. We put them out for every single gosh darn release that's been happening over the last couple of years, and we've got 2 more of those coming out just this year with the Superman movie that'll be coming out in July, as well as the Fantastic Four movie. So those are technically Movie Mayhems. But we also got one more next week, and that's going to be Atomic Blonde. That's J.A.'s pick. And because Nicole enjoyed watching Daredevil so much, she's going to come back and watch Atomic Blonde with us. So what's the comic book that Atomic Blonde is with? Is it The Coldest City?
Coldest City.
Yeah. So a lot of people don't know it was based on a comic book, but we will prove them wrong. Rate, review, and subscribe, www.lastcomicshoppodcast.com, so you don't miss it.
You got to do too. You got to smash that 5-star review. Get us some good ratings. And you know what, guys? Give me a call when you guys decide to do Thomas Jane's Punisher or Punisher Warzone. That is a fantastic movie. I don't care what any of y'all say. That's a good movie.
With Kevin Nash.
No, Kevin Nash is in the Punisher.
Warzone is with the guy who just passed away.
That Ray Stevenson was the actor's name we were looking for, J.A.
And in the Star Wars Ahsoka series.
Who was the bad guy? That was John Travolta was the bad guy.
No, that you're thinking about Punisher with Thomas J. That's the first one.
Who's the bad guy in Warzone?
Jigsaw is the villain in Punisher Warzone, played by Dominic West. I don't know. It was just good.
All right, we'll take you at your word for it. We also want you to take our word that while we're the Last Comic Shop podcast, we don't want to be the last comic shop. So get out there and go buy some comic books. We don't have really a real recommendation segment this week, but Daredevil, man. Pick out some Daredevil. There's obviously the Frank Miller stuff, and then we mentioned a whole bunch of writers. If you're into crime noir, go pick up some Bendis Daredevil. If you're into fun superheroic stuff, check out that Mark Waid, Chris Somney run on Daredevil. That's great. If you want some fun swashbuckling Daredevil, you can go with the Joe Kelly run from the late 90s, which is also very good. Has some cool Cary Nord art to it. There's the Brubaker run of Daredevil. There's the Chip Zdarsky run of Daredevil. There's the new run that's been coming out recently with Saladin Ahmed. That has been a banger. There's so many great Daredevil comics out there. So.
And you're forgetting about like the Gene Colan stuff back in the day. He drew some awesome Silver Age Daredevil. You're forgetting about when Daredevil spent years hanging out with Black Widow for no good reason in the 70s. He's all over the map.
And most importantly is the Ann Nocenti run that we talked about today. You owe it to yourself to experience the weird and wild and trip through hell that is that era of Daredevil. It's great. And on that note, there is a ton of other stuff. What else have we got out there, J.A.?
We have a link to our merch store. You can always get t-shirts, hats, coffee mugs, tote bags. This week, leather onesies that have a zipper, so you can go all king.
You're not going to go with the leather jackets with the
oh yes, yes, or pit vents in your leather dusters. That's right.
Just in case you get a little sweaty on the underarms.
He goes through security at the airport. This is post 9/11, and he's setting off all the bells and whistles, and nobody takes him for a secondary screening. That I call bullshit.
Okay, guys, we've got tremendous, awesome movies and comic books to come, so we hope that you stick around. Until then, I was those with most, Andy Larson. I was joined by J. Scott, Chad Smith, and the wonderful Ethan Larson, and we hope that you stay safe. Stay fighting sandbags that drop from your ceiling. That's all I can say about that. I still don't understand. How did she get up there first? Did she specifically climb up there with a big ladder and just like hang them, and then she's like, and how does she reset them, right? Like, you think you'd have to do that once in a while.
That's what the key grip did.
Comic Shop Podcast was a 2025 Black Angus production.